Hey everybody, thank you for listening. Welcome to GameGO, a podcast where we talk about video games and whatever else we want. I'm your host, H8BitHero, and your other host, Sonorith.
Hey, yeah, we want to get right into it this time. So turns out that we're being spied on. Last week, if you remember, I mentioned that they should put all the zombie maps together from the Call of Duty series.
Getting the tin hats ready now.
Yeah, turns out they're following exactly what I suggested. They are releasing the Call of Duty Zombies Chronicles update, or DLC, for Black Ops 3. It's going to be DLC. It's a roughly $35 pack. We'll find out. Well, the price will be announced by the time you hear this, and we'll update next week. It's going to be 8 zombie maps from the World at War, Black Ops 1, and Black Ops 2 games. And it's basically the entire arc of the Nazi zombie storyline. They've all been following a big story, and this will bring it all up to Black Ops 3. It's good news if you're kind of worried about missing some of the more important details. Like I knew from Black Ops 1 upward that there was a story. I didn't play World at War, though, so this is a good opportunity for people to catch up. It'll be out May 16th for PS4. The other consoles, PC and Xbox One, will be getting it later because I believe Sony has that deal with Activision for earlier DLC.
Them and their exclusive time releases.
Yes, the important thing here is that they are definitely spying on us, so, we're going to have to do something about that.
Mm-hmm. Stop your recording devices, all of them. Darksiders 3 has been confirmed in development from Gunfire Games and publisher THQ Nordic. According to Amazon, they've got a release of 2018. You know they're reliable because they're the ones to first leak it. Fury is going to be the next horseman we play as. I was upset about this on the last episode, but it turns out this story was using different horsemen to begin with anyway. They replaced the last two.
Yeah.
Fury Strife replacing Pestilence and
Famine.
Her main weapon is going to be a whip, which we got to note all our comments on it are based on the pre-alpha 12-minute gameplay build that they released. It's up on YouTube. She's using a whip for most of the game. Not too exciting or anything. It looks like it does any other basic function. It's the main weapon.
Yeah.
It was disappointing not to see the blades on her back. They were not used in the demo, at least. And considering how much they're talking about how she's going to be a mage, there wasn't a whole lot of magic being used either. Most of the combat was restricted to only the whip.
Yeah, it seemed like pretty basic fighting. I'm hoping either because it's pre-alpha or it's just really early in the game that's just why we didn't see a whole lot of variety, and hopefully, later in the game it'll open up a little more.
It was like I said, 12-minute clip towards the middle 6 minutes, 8 minute mark, somewhere around there. Sloth boss fight. That was literally I was repulsed watching that thing. They did a really good job.
Yeah, and just to bring everyone up to speed, she is fighting the 7 deadly sins in the game. So Sloth was the one that we saw in the trailer there. Yeah, he was pretty disgusting. He had like an insect body, but it looked good enough that I was disgusted the whole time.
Yeah, they got the sheen where when you've seen a bug or a beetle up close, you've seen that kind of weird, gross reflection. And just the composition of its body. He's got a bunch of those pustules on his gut/lower chest.
Yeah.
It's a pretty interesting boss fight considering that he's a big heavy guy. He's being carried by a bunch of minions.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. While we were watching it, Sana was saying it was reminiscent of the what was the boss? The jellyfish boss from
Lord Jabu Jabu's Belly and Ocarina of Time,
where you have to take out the outer enemies, the outer little minions before you can get to the core. It's kind of the same idea there. It's pretty awesome to see that redone. The way they did it. A bunch of little, what are they, crabs?
They look like beetles or something. Sloth's subtitle was Lord of the Flies, so I'm assuming there's some sort of insects that serve him.
Okay. Yeah, they look crustaceous in nature. That's why I thought crabs. But,
yeah.
That makes a lot more sense. They're bugs. But, yeah, they were carrying him around on their back. That was pretty cool. Taking them down one by one would slow down his movement and eventually drop the the throne platform that he's sitting on. And then, yeah, he exposes his big, gross, like, slug for a butt-like thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing was gross. What are those? The abdomen? Thorax.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, we were cringing the whole time. The fight itself didn't really seem all that interesting. Like, the character was just attacking him and then dodging attacks. Hopefully that's gets polished later on.
That's the second segment. Like I said, the first half was pretty cool.
Yeah. It seemed disgusting, but in a good way. Like it definitely like.
It's been a long time since I kind of wanted to just like no, like let's stop. Let's not keep watching this.
Right.
Which means that they're doing good, I guess.
Yeah, it's a pre-alpha build, so I mean, hopefully later on they'll have a little more polish on it, maybe some, actual mechanics to the fight. But other than that, it wasn't too remarkable. It just looked pretty.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much better it's going to end up looking after it goes through the pre-alpha.
Yeah.
It's scrubbed up and polished up a little bit. Recent updates, Outlast 2, which was released April 25th by developer and publisher Red Barrel Studio, is getting an update. You play as an investigator armed with only a camera, so your night vision is extremely important because you're walking around very, very dimly lit, barely lit, or unlit rooms throughout the game.
Yeah, it's pretty creepy.
The update lowers the difficulty in quote-unquote key areas and moments. To quote the dev, while the launch of Outlast 2 has been a commercial success, we have kept a close eye on the feedback from countless community members, Let's Players, and reviews. Today's patch introduces some minor adjustments on the game's difficulty in key areas and moments. On normal difficulty, this will offer players a more appropriately balanced experience while still maintaining higher levels of challenge on hard and nightmare difficulties.
It's pretty vague.
Yeah, it's kind of vague there. There's a bunch of also minor fixes in the list. The other major bit of it is the in-game mic will no longer be using extra batteries. The night vision is vital to the gameplay, and the night vision drains the battery, so it's going to alleviate the use of that for players. I have to edit it.
Yeah, I played the first one. It was pretty creepy. And I played on the PS4, so like the light bar on the back, it would on the controller it would glow green whenever you activated night vision, which was kind of immersive. It was pretty cool. But here, this one's just as good and just as scary, if not more so. So hopefully I can pick it up and get through it because I was terrified of the first one.
Yeah, I need to stream one of these soon, very soon.
Yeah, they seem like perfect for that kind of Let's Plays.
Medium.
Yes. In other news, though, Horizon Zero Dawn is also getting an update. It's version 1.2, and this is, of course, the Guerrilla Games project that I mentioned like a week ago or two.
Mm-hmm, the project.
Yeah. They are adding they're fixing a bunch of bugs, but one of the more like prominent features is that they're adding features to photo mode, which photo mode is you can like pause the game and then like manipulate the camera, time of day. Like there's a lot of stuff you can do to kind of get a cool shot that you wouldn't like just playing normally.
It's becoming a standard in these games looking as good as they are now.
Well, and it's for good reason too, because like games like Infamous, Second Son, and this one, Last of Us, I think Uncharted has it now. These games look great when you're, in the screenshots, when they're showing the game off before it comes out. And then you're playing it and something kind of gets lost when there's so many details going on at the same time. So this kind of lets you like really focus on things and really, and like kind of appreciate how they look, when it's on your screen,
Having only seen so many screenshots or of it in use, it looks amazing.
Yeah, it's great, and people get really artsy with it. Like they can do black and white vignettes or like really cool action shots. I have a few from Infamous that I think are pretty cool. Maybe
I'm actually following Aloy on her Instagram, and damn, dude, just likes everywhere.
Yeah, those selfies. Actually, you can kind of take a selfie now. You can. They added the ability to have her face the camera. I'm not sure if that's like if she's running and she'll look at the camera or if her whole body will turn. We'll find out a little more when that goes live. They're also adding a few new filters and some poses and facial expressions. So I think you can make her smile or look more like combat ready and intense.
Just something that isn't easy to do.
Yeah, and I think there's one where she's like lying on her back, and the example was she's lying in like vegetation, like just relaxing. So that could be cool to kind of play around with. And if you haven't tried these photo modes in these games, I suggest you give it like a little time because it is cool to see like these small details that you wouldn't notice otherwise in these games that you're playing. Another thing they're adding, which is cool for some Latin American fans, they're adding Spanish subtitles, and on top of that, you can even download a Spanish voice pack from the PlayStation Store. So that's pretty cool. I might check it out just to see how the quality of the voiceovers, you know. Yeah, and that seems to be really the gist of the update, but it's substantial.
That's a pretty sweet update right there. Very considerate.
Yeah.
I wonder. I don't know that I've seen this anywhere else where you can download voiceover packs, but this is really cool. If it better become a trend, you know, that'd be nice.
Yeah, if it's done well, because I'm assuming that it is, but you just never know. Sometimes they'll just half-ass it and throw it up there. But it's Guerrilla Games. I'm sure they really tried.
Right.
Yeah.
No overviews this week, not in depth anyway. I got to try a little bit of Bye Bye Box Boy recently. That came out on April 12th, so it's not too new, but it's still fun. Good times. Worth my penny. Worth every single little bit of it.
Yeah, I couldn't get my hands on anything new this week. I did play a lot of Heroes of the Storm. Like I said, the Nexus Challenge is still going on for like the next 2 weeks. I found a few characters that I like, but you have to like level a lot of characters to really get your player level up, which is what gets you the loot boxes.
Okay.
For instance, like a level 5 character takes a lot more experience than a level 1 character to level up. But I did get those challenges knocked out, 5 matches with a friend. And next week I'm looking forward to doing that again. Like it's fun and it's a quick like little diversion, especially if you've been playing Overwatch a lot like you and I have.
Right.
You can take a break from that and kind of do something different. And now that they're adding Overwatch characters to Heroes of the Storm, you still kind of get that like old taste of home while you're still enjoying something new.
Right.
But yeah, don't forget to play those matches if you're enjoying Heroes of the Storm, and you'll get free stuff for both games. But a game that is coming out soon, I'm really looking forward to this. Injustice 2.
Yeah, you're a big fan of these.
Yeah, I loved the first one. I even played the phone one for a bit, even though it's not too similar. Yeah, it's by NetherRealm Studios. It's published by Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, and it's the same studio that made like the Arkham series. But this is basically Mortal Kombat with DC characters.
Yeah.
They're not going to get super violent. They're not going to rip each other's heads off on a fatality or anything. But it's still cool to see Green Lantern like beating the crap out of Superman, or like I think in the first game you had Solomon Grundy, or no, even Bane like just smashing Batman over his knee like he does in the comic and movie. This is going to come out May 16th, so it's about a little over a week away. And it'll continue the story of the first game, which in case you didn't play the first one, you're not missing too much. I mean, it's actually a decent story, but it's a fighting game, so it's basically Superman goes rogue, and then everybody has to stop him. Some people join him, some people don't, and it basically becomes a civil war with some alternate Earth stuff getting mixed in there.
Who goes against Superman?
Batman. Pretty much all the normal people went up against him. Like Green Arrow did. I think Black Canary, Huntress. There were Lex Luthor even. He pretended to be Superman's ally for this.
Ah.
And he was working to help Batman and the normal humans. Like.
But they both have money, so that makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, even characters. Well, like Huntress, as far as I know, she's not a super rich billionaire playboy or girl.
She can be whatever she wants to be.
Yeah. They're adding new characters to this one. They're adding the Red Lantern leader Atrocitus. They're adding Cheetah, Scarecrow, who was in the first game kind of as a transition, and if you knock somebody off the edge of the stage, he would like attack them and then throw them back in. Yeah, they're adding like Blue Beetle, Captain Cold, Deadshot, I think is attributed to his Suicide Squad popularity. And then they're bringing back the Joker differently because of stuff that happened in the first game. I'm not sure what the story is there, but it looks interesting. They're adding some new a new ability where you can tech out of a combo if you use a part of your meter. So you'll be able to roll out of a combo, or if you're in midair, you can basically just jump out of it. If they know you're going to do it, though, then they'll just catch you in another combo. Like you can,
You'd always fake them out.
Yeah, it becomes this like kind of a mind game thing where you're like, does he know what I'm going to do, or do they know what I'm going to do next? But the big thing they're selling in this game is customization, and I'm a huge fan of this because I always like the multiverse stuff. So this is kind of like up my alley. Um, as you're playing characters in like the multiverse mode, which is basically like special matches with special conditions or handicaps, you'll be able to earn gear for a character, and you can level up the character. So, for instance, Green Lantern, who is my favorite, I'll be able to change his mask into like a helmet or something, or his chest piece will have more armor on it, or it'll look different, or you can even change the color of the character. I know Superman has like a teal, white, and red color scheme instead of the traditional red, yellow, blue.
Mm-hmm.
Batman has one that instead of being yellow and black, it's like red and black, or like I think there's probably going to be an animated series one that's like blue and light gray.
Okay.
So for me, that's kind of stuff is really cool, and some of the gear will add stats to the character, which if you like playing them a certain way, I think that'll really make it more fun. Which you don't need to do online. If you want a fair fight, you can always turn those off so that it's just cosmetic only, which is still cool. Some of the stuff I've seen, it makes the characters that you know and love look a little different, and it adds like this cool thing where if you're playing online, you're like, what kind of characters am I going to see that I didn't know that they had this stuff? So I'm really looking forward to that. But I think you were looking forward to another fighting game, right?
No, I wasn't, but I'm sure as hell gonna cover it.
What is it?
Tekken 7 by developer and publisher Bandai Namco. I don't think, not too many people have heard of these guys. They're pretty underground, just up and coming. Game comes out June 2nd. It's been out in Japan as an arcade for how long? I think it was
like 2 years.
2 years already. I didn't even know this was still a thing. Like I heard about this last I heard about this was with Street Fighter 4. But that was like Street Fighter 5, I don't think it even went to arcades. So I was surprised to see that Tekken 7 actually did. Good to see that there's still some kind of thriving arcade community somewhere. The version we're going to get is going to be plainly named Tekken 7, but it is the Fated Retribution version of the two arcade games, which is the second of the two. It's going to include two major gameplay mechanics that are new. One is the Rage Art. Normally, characters get an attack bonus once they've hit a critical HP. This is going to give the player the option to cancel that and exchange it for about an attack that does about 30% damage.
Wow.
Yeah, that can be a pretty big, huge game changer. 30% is nothing to scoff at, especially when like little ticks can make all the difference in games like these when you get to the competitive level.
Yeah, I'm wondering how hard it's going to be to land that.
The Power Crush, the definition wasn't entirely clear, but what it sounds like is that it's going to give you basically uninterruptible attacks. Starting an attack, you're not going to get any knockback from it. You still take all the damage as you would in like the first hit of a focus attack in Street Fighter 4 or Little Mac's hyper armor. You're still going to take the damage, but you're not going to get knocked back from it, which is pretty awesome if you want to guarantee, a startup to a combo. But you got to know that it only blocks upper and mid attacks. You're still open to low attacks. So there's still it's not completely broken.
Yeah, you can't just use that to win.
Yeah, they're not going to let you get cheap about it.
That's good. I mean, I've never been a huge Tekken fan, but it's cool that it still has like the arcade presence over there,
Yeah.
Especially considering like that arcades are a dying breed.
It is dying. Yeah, they are getting shut down. I remember reading a Kotaku article about like arcade graveyards.
Oh no.
Just abandoned
machines.
Yeah, like arcades entirely.
Oh god.
Like just their lease was up. They couldn't pay because they're getting that unpopular, and so yeah, they just leave everything in there. It's so depressing. Sad.
Yeah, I mean, considering how much time we spent like when we were younger, like I mean, Chuck E. Cheese is probably like the most popular arcade now. Oh, except Round 1 is coming around. Have you heard about that?
I have.
Yeah, it's just like a lot of imported games, but then there's also just some stuff that's straight up fighting games. That seems pretty cool, and hopefully that keeps arcades alive because some of those games that you only find at arcades are pretty cool. But yeah, it's cool that Tekken's still keeping that going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Minecraft Switch Edition is coming soon from developer and publisher Mojang. It's going to come out at a $30 price tag May 11th. That's only in a couple, as that should be about 3 days after we release this particular recording. It's going to come out with a Mario texture pack along with an entire Mario world, which is just going to have random Mario themed things going about the world, characters running around, various Mario items like question mark boxes, the sun from Mario 3. They're just going to make appearances. They're going to be all over the place.
Yeah, I saw the Koopas, I think, are this world's sheep. So if you shear the sheep, it takes the Koopa shell off of the...
I want Lemmy's Koopa shell.
I don't know if you can get his specifically, but I think there's going to be like 40 skins from the Mario franchise. So I think the Koopalings are among those skins that you can play as. I think the Goombas are chickens. So yeah, it's cool to see like them do stuff with these characters and shove them in places that you wouldn't necessarily like see or think of firsthand.
It's really nice to see them be just, ever since Mario started meeting up with Sonic, who was his rival, like just...
At the Olympics.
At the Olympics, that they started opening up Mario to get used with other franchises. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, like those rabbits, huh?
Just like the rabbits.
You know, we haven't seen anything about it yet. Let's reserve judgment. Something we can judge, however, is the new Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia, I think it's called.
Well, we can't judge the...
Well, hold on. The season pass has been announced, and it's going to cost $45.
That we can pass judgment on.
Yes, because the game itself is $40.
The season pass is $5 more than the base title.
Yeah, if you wanted to get both at the same time, you'd be paying more than double the price. I don't, like, it comes with 5 DLCs, and they're not all going to be, like, $9 to $10. Some of them are 15, some are 5. So, I mean, this might be better to kind of pick and choose the ones you want. And they're adding a character that you normally wouldn't get in the campaign, and I think they're adding some weapons and maps that I mean, obviously maps, but, you know, I don't know if it's worth it. I played some of the one for Fire Emblem Awakening. I got one or two of the DLC maps for that, and they were okay. I mean, they were just there to grind to level up, but it wasn't really worth it. So we'll see if the fans think this one is worth the price tag.
I want to catch up, so I'm going through that one right now. And then I have Birthright ready to go next.
Oh, you're going through Awakening right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that one's good. It was fun, and especially because the last one I played was the Sacred Stones, I think, for Game Boy Advance. And
wow.
The series has come a long way, so it's good to see that they're not just staying in one place, and they're actually making improvements to it.
The game's going to be out May 19th, and that is by developer Intelligent Systems and obviously publisher Nintendo. Before we go any further, we want to make a couple of shout-outs to commenters and people who have been helping us and been wildly supportive of our GameGO podcast. Thank you guys very much. This goes out to you, Cheyenne, Benny, Favi, Devin, Ray, Amanda, Jeffy Jeff, Rolando, George, my mom, Andrew, Tanya, Taylor, Nicole, Tim, and G, whose name I don't have, but he's from work. Thank you all very much for your help, support, tips, your subscribes, your likes, the whole bit.
Yeah, we really appreciate everything you guys are doing for us. Everybody else, you know, keep it up. If you guys could just like leave a good review or something on iTunes or the Google Play Store or wherever you're listening to this, that would actually help a lot. That helps us get our foot in the door for other people to find us by accident, you know?
High ratings, high likes, high shares. Please, we're asking for all of it. Thank you very much.
All right, so with those formalities out of the way, we wanted to get into the really nitty-gritty topic of this episode, which is we wanted to discuss the difficulty in games, not just recently, but like dating back as far as 30 years even, in regards to how much the game tries to help you to beat it. And I wanted to talk about this because I recently platinumed Horizon Zero Dawn, which I mentioned in a few episodes, and it didn't feel like the game was really holding my hand. Like I mentioned in my review here on the podcast and on the website on GameGoPodcast.com, the game did it in such a way that it felt like it was teaching you without really being condescending about it, where it's constantly reminding you how to do something. I think a game that's a good example of that is Assassin's Creed or the Arkham series. the Batman Arkham series, they constantly are telling you how to do something that you've done like 100 times over and over again. And really, if you don't clearly understand how to do it, that's not always your fault. I feel like sometimes that instruction can get a little muddled on the developer's part. If you tell me to jump away from a wall by holding down and jumping, I understand that. And if I'm in a situation where I do what I think I'm supposed to do and it doesn't work out, then either I messed up or the way that it's presented on the screen, the situation is a little unclear. I don't need 100 reminders telling me you just jump away from the wall or just jump up to the next ledge. Horizon Zero Dawn, there's a lot of situations where you're climbing things and it doesn't remind you every single time.
Right.
Yeah. Instead, it just focuses on the cool slow-mo jumps that she does sometimes, and she'll like a cliffhanger. It's pretty cool. I feel like and it's not all new games, it's not all old games that do one thing or the other. Like the original Zelda, that game just threw you into the world and was like, good luck, kid. And now, and specifically with the Zelda series, once it got into 3D, I understand why at first it needed that kind of transition. It was very tutorial heavy because it was a 3D world, and that's not something that people were used to. The N64, it came with this weird Trident controller. It had a bunch of buttons that I rarely even used. I never used like the left half of that control unless it was for like Pokemon Stadium, which specifically needed the D-pad.
I remember seeing the trailer, and it said a 3D controller for a 3D world. It's like controllers before were presented in the exact same amount of dimensions, bruv.
Ocarina of Time started the Zelda series on an unfortunate trend of just giving you way too much to like have to skip through and just keep tapping the A button to get through all the dialogue. I think what was it? Twilight Princess had like 5 hours of tutorial. It seems like.
It's actually only about 3 to 4 hours, which is still right. It's excessive in any case. The most egregious offender of the tutorializing, of the heavy over tutorializing, is like common sense, guys. This is not needed in any way. Was Skyward Sword. It had some solid gameplay, and the 1-to-1 was great, but I didn't need to be reminded of anything a second time ever, let alone every goddamn time I turned on and off that game.
Yeah.
Every time that you hit the start button, went through the main menu, loaded your file, it acted like it was the first time you ever played the damn game again. And every time that you pick up a new item, an item for the first time again, okay, maybe I'd be exaggerating with like a heart flower. I don't think it went that bad.
Oh no.
But literally, like if you picked up a purple rupee again for the first time within that play session, you were gonna go through the little thing that explained to you how much it was and that you had a beaming thing on your face, as opposed to before where it would only do that with a treasure chest, and you wouldn't get that recurring again.
I feel like maybe one of two things they could have done. One is have that option turned off. Like if your child is playing the game and they're like, okay, you need constant reminders, then yeah, turn that on. Like that is what that is for kids that need the helping hand.
Yeah, the heavy tutorializing is meant to make sure that people who already feel alienated by video games aren't so much so.
Yeah, it comes off as condescending, to be perfectly frank.
Really,
the other option I was thinking. These things, the games nowadays, they have like built-in clocks on the consoles. They could have done something so that if it's been more than a month since the last time you played, here's a brief reminder. This is what all these things do. If that was a thing that only happened because I stopped playing it for a year, that is totally fine. I'm not gonna freak out. But this thing was every single time. It got to the point where you're like, I don't want to stop playing or turn it off, just so I don't have to go through all these reminders the next time I want to get rupees or monster guts or whatever it is I find.
God forbid you happen to be like hunting for items or farming items between different days, like in real life. Because then, yeah, you're going to read all of those material descriptions again and again and again. And I'm like, okay, let's say you start playing and you load your file, you're going to see these things. Now you want to go get something to eat, you leave, you turn off the thing, you come back, you're going to read those same descriptions again. That's how bad this is.
Yes, and to get back on track with the point, this game was probably the worst example of Zelda being a hand-holding, over-involved series. Where
That's not even mentioning Fee. I forgot. Like,
yeah, she's
that's
the one
just,
yeah.
That's just talking about, that's in-game descriptions. That's not
Yes,
Fee telling you.
That's true, okay.
Then you include the stuff that Fee actually tells you.
Yeah.
Hey, your battery's low, by the way.
Hey, you've been playing for 2 hours. Why don't you take a break?
Also, your battery is still low.
And then the voice that she had wasn't like...
It was not, for as much as you're going to hear her, just don't give her a damn voice.
Yeah, she came off as annoying rather than actually helpful. I don't think I ever needed her advice. It was like in Ocarina of Time, I think, did a better job with Navi. It was annoying having the, hey, listen, but at least when you needed her, you're like, oh, hey, like, what about this boss? Is there something specific I need to do? In case you were stuck. With her, it seemed like she was offering advice whether or not you wanted it. And again, that comes off as like, this guy doesn't know any better. I better help him out.
Right.
I'm the hero of time, all right? I think I know what I'm doing. But like I said, this is probably the worst offender of the Zelda series. And what we wanted, well, ideally, we got Breath of the Wild, which I think is a perfect medium. We are going to get a little more into the opposite end of the spectrum where the games don't explain anything to you. But for now, Zelda Breath of the Wild is a great middle ground where the game, it does drop you into the middle of the world and it doesn't explain everything to you, but it does give you enough. And the tutorial is, I wouldn't even consider a tutorial because it felt like Ocarina of Time again, where you're exploring the world and you have to learn things again. But it doesn't do it in a way that like it treats you like a baby that doesn't know what you're doing.
Like, this isn't the first time I've seen Zelda. This isn't the first time I've held a control. This world is out there, and if I bought this game, I am generally sufficient enough to use a freaking stick, an analog stick. This is not my first foray into a game, and even if it is, these are very, very intuitive things that at this point in our history,
Yeah.
like this is you see a control stick, a person knows, oh, okay, that's gonna move something.
Yeah, I want to give a specific example. Near the beginning of Breath of the Wild, there's a point where you have to go to a shrine, a puzzle, to get a new ability. And to get up there, it's freezing cold up there, so Link will freeze to death if you don't take the proper precautions. I didn't even know you could do this. What I did is I used an axe to cut down a tree to cross a river to find peppers and I think a warm shirt, and that was enough to get me up there. I lent the game to Cheyenne, my girlfriend's sister, and she found a house that said if you cook a certain thing, then you'll be rewarded with this. And she ended up finding a pig and hunting it for hours. And she eventually got it. She made the meal, and she was rewarded with a set of clothes that kept her warm. And this is two people not being told what to do, finding two separate solutions for this problem. And this is something you're only going to see if you don't put blinders on people and just force them through the same tutorial, the same condescending instructions that they don't need. Another great example in Zelda is that there's an entire subset now, a subculture, where they're shrine skipping. And it's a practice where you basically play with the game's physics in a legitimate way. You're not glitching anything. You skip over the intended solution for the puzzle.
Yeah,
and it's cool. It's cool to see people doing this because it's like if you had put hard limits on the game, people would not have done this, and it's cool to see the ingenuity that people display.
Right, the flexibility that their new reliance on physics gives them, it lets you play around and trick this world. Where in the past they were attempting really to, they were very rigid, and things were in a very set place for very specific reasons. And if you found a way to circumvent those things, you weren't outdoing the game. You broke the game. Yeah. You glitched out and just broke the rule of the game. Whereas right here, this seems a lot more legitimate because it's using the rules that you're still completely bound by the game's rules. Using those to circumvent the thing that the game wants you to do.
Yeah, I saw a GIF of Nick Robinson of Polygon. There's a dungeon where you have to use a metal, find an electric orb and drop it into a slot so that it powers up a gate you can get through. There's 2 orbs, and so you need to power both of them up to get through the gate. What Nick Robinson did is instead he dropped a bunch of metal weapons and he lined them up so the current would travel from one orb to both gate switches.
Okay, I know which one he's talking about.
Yeah.
Or one of the types, yeah.
So I think this is a good example of, and hopefully this is something that they've learned their mistakes. They don't want to be holding the player's hand through every step of the way. Breath of the Wild is a perfect example, in my opinion at least, of a good middle ground. And there's a few other games too that I think follow that same I don't know, a guided experience that's not, what do you call it? A guided sandbox? No.
I don't know. It's hard to give a word for that good mix in between, which is what you're looking for. It's not without its aid. You still should know your generally what your next goal should be, what your next objective should be. But you're also not at all told how to do any of it. Just, hey, get to this point and make things happen. Do it.
Yeah.
That's that.
It's not to say that these games are bad. Assassin's Creed is a fun franchise. It just keeps reminding you of things that you already know how to do. Same thing with the Arkham series, the Call of Duty franchise. This is a series of games that's aimed at, it's rated M. Mm-hmm. For violence, and there's a lot of guns, a lot of explosions, and swearing. This is not a game for kids.
The intended age is going to be a little bit higher.
So it stumps me why the campaign feels the need to constantly tell you where to be. Like, follow this guy all the way to the end of the level. Like, go here, go here, go here, go here. And it's like, just put me in the world. I'll find my own way. Like where the bad guys are coming from, that's probably where I'm going. They're trying to stop me from getting to the other side of that. That's probably where I'm trying to go.
A game like that is trying to make you feel cool by doing everything, but it takes it away when somebody is telling you step for step how to do everything.
It reminds me of that commercial where the kid gets on the roller coaster and it's the Michael Vick experience, and it's carrying him in a harness, and it's like a simulation of a football game. So then the little harness starts like flipping him like he's Michael Vick, like juking players.
Right.
He did this thing, but only because he was brought along for the ride.
Okay.
But like I said, these aren't bad games. It's just a bad practice, I think. On the other end, you have games that will just throw you into the world and don't really give you all that much explanation on pretty much anything. Like, I mentioned this game last week. It applies here. The Binding of Isaac. Our resident expert, Jeff, I asked him about it, and he actually had a pretty good explanation, and I concur. I did play some of the game, so I know what he's talking about. When you start the game, it just drops you into a dungeon, and the kid's like crying naked on the floor, and on the tile, like on the floor of the game, it's like, here's how you move, here's how you shoot, and then go at it.
Yeah, there's a door, 2 doors. There's doors to go through.
And
go.
Beyond that, when you find an upgrade, you don't know if it's an actual upgrade. Some of the upgrades will override each other, but you don't know what any of them does until you've picked it up and tried it. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, you might have a really big tier that does extra damage. That's your bullets.
The regular attacks are tiers.
But sometimes you'll pick up an item that gets rid of that. And that's not always a good thing. Sometimes you do get a better upgrade, but you're learning about the game as you're playing it. In a high stakes situation, like if you don't get it, you're gonna die and you're gonna have to start over, which is fine. That's what the game is intended for, you to keep dying and trying again and again. But you're learning more and more. You're getting more information that you're gonna be able to put to good use. And the same thing with some of the items you'll be able to use. Like there's pills. One of them will take you to like a healing area. One of them will hurt you. One of them will just like power up your attacks or kill all the enemies. It's something that you have to experiment with and practice. He, like I said, he was defending this game pretty passionately, and he thought this was a great example of a game that just drops you off without really telling you much of whatever you need to know to get through it. It's just you and what you can learn through the gameplay.
A good example of the past throwing you straight into the deep end is something like Contra, where in the first screen you don't have too much going on, but you got enough to pressure you to like start moving. You sit there for a couple of seconds and the first soldier is already about to tackle you down. So you're either gonna have to jump out of his way, shoot him, or something, but it forces you to act. Through that and the next maybe 2 or 3 screens, you start learning, oh, I can shoot downward because they start placing enemies below you. Then also that you're going to have to jump because if you keep pressing forward, the exploding bridge, which happens like within the first 10 seconds of the game, if you just keep trudging on, that's going to teach you, yeah, you're going to have to jump. Just running across it, you don't make it fast enough. And then, you fall down into the water. To escape the water, you're going to have to press something else to figure out what do I do. This was a pretty good way of making it not condescending because everything there, you can still game over within the first couple of seconds of that game. You're that vulnerable, but it's also not so difficult that you shouldn't be able to beat or get past at least the first half of the first level within maybe 2 or 3 lives. Maybe get a game over, okay, but now I know better.
Yeah, that actually reminds me a lot of Mega Man X specifically. If you've seen Eagle Raptor's sequelitis video regarding the series, he mentions that a lot of what you need to know to play the game is taught to you not by tutorials and then nagging companions, but like by just going through the level. You're by yourself at the beginning. You're gonna figure out you can move just by pushing buttons on the control. You're gonna figure out you can shoot. The first time you have to wall jump, there's a lot of context clues given, and in the game teaches you all these things without actually saying, just push the jump button when you're up against the wall to jump. No, this is something that, maybe you have the manual, but nowadays, like, it's something you have to figure out on your own, and it's not condescending, and you actually do get a small sense of accomplishment by like, okay, I figured out all these things by myself, and that's something that we take for granted now that we're older and that we've been playing games a lot. But for people that are younger, for people that this is like Mega Man X is their first game, this is a great tool to teach them how to observe what the game is throwing at you and contextualize it in a way that lets you learn the controls, that lets you learn how to play.
Shovel Knight follows in that same respect.
Yeah, it's melee Mega Man.
Yeah, basically, you go from the elements that it borrowed of the other games, though. It's just great that it really it forces you to use them first, so that then you can familiarize yourself in a safe environment. Like in the first level of Shovel Knight, you jump. There's a certain pit that you're gonna have to jump down, and it's safe to jump down it, but it's blocked by one of those dirt blocks. So you're gonna have to learn the down or the functionality of the jump
the downward
and hit down.
digging. Yeah,
exactly. This part, there's no other way to get through it without figuring that out. And like I said, it's in a nice, safe environment, so there's nothing else really distracting you. You focus on how the hell do I get through this? There's nothing else to take your attention. You learn it, you retain it, and then in a couple of screens later, now you're going to have to put it to practice alongside the challenge of enemies being down there.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way for younger people to learn how to play these games. Another older example that I wanted to give you was Doom, like the very first Doom. This is something that's no longer quite as applicable with the advent of auto-regenerating health. But in the original Doom, if you got hurt, you stayed hurt until you found health pack,
This was actually the norm for first-person shooters, really, until
like
Halo. And Call of Duty. Yeah. They made regenning like the standard staple for first-person shooting.
But as I was saying, if you got hurt, you basically needed to find a health pack, and this made the gameplay design completely different because you weren't just going down a corridor of enemies shooting them all up. No, this time you're exploring the levels, you're exploring the worlds that they make for you because of a necessity. You're dying. I'm going to not go down what I assume is the ending hallway. I'm going to go back and look for some health. And you might find a secret or two. You might find a better weapon. You might find that health pack. But that sense of accomplishment you get by discovering things that nobody told you were there. You went and found them because you needed something and you just happened upon it. You happened upon it. It definitely added something to the value of the item. Like this is mine because I found it. I didn't need it, but this is a nice surprise. And nowadays you don't really necessarily see that unless they're specifically hidden like Easter eggs, which are all the rage nowadays, but like it's not, for me at least, it's not as fulfilling as finding a secret because, I needed something over here and surprise, this is what I found instead. Um, a good example, I think, of a game that is not necessarily informational out of necessity is fighting games. Uh, you have like Marvel vs. Capcom's, Street Fighters, Tekken's, Injustice. All these games, they give you upfront what you need to play the game, but they don't give you everything. And that's something that people have been digging through forever. People are still playing Super Smash Bros. Melee. I found out that Donkey Kong I believe it's for the Wii U version of Super Smash Bros. They just discovered a combo called a Ding Dong for him that's very effective, and it actually brought the character up in ranking because it's so effective. So
How long ago did that game come out?
forever ago.
And yeah, people are still finding combos on it on a game that was already getting played obsessively the week it came out.
Yeah, everyone's pouring over it, and they're still finding things. These games, they need to be vague in order for people. The people that go looking for this information are the ones that are contributing it to it later on.
Yeah, one of the important things of fighting games is their community. For a fighting game to last long, it's required that the community stay active, and in order for that to happen, you can't hand over everything, every bit of information and every little thing over these fighting games. Learning them and overcoming them, learning these combos and then overcoming your own little personal quirks to get the advantage over your enemy is a massive facet of fighting games, which is one of the reasons throwing this on the deep end, having a game like this or having games like fighting games not tell you anything to begin with, it's not a bad thing. It seems like it's something that's perfectly acceptable when it comes to a game like this.
And some would say it's necessary. But a game, like if you're looking at, for a prime example, especially in recent days or recent years, the Bloodborne/Souls series, those games are punishing and unflinching in their difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
These games don't even tell you the lore unless you're really looking for it, you know?
These games barely tell you how to do anything.
Yeah, they kind of just tell you, oh, here's your equipment, good luck, bye.
I tried Souls 1, and I personally did not like it from the get-go. I already wasn't a big fan of attacks you can't cancel out of. Then, on top of that, there's I hate, the argument back is always, oh, what, you want your handheld? You want it to tell you everything? I want it to tell me fucking something. I just got I woke up as a zombie, killed a fat lizard thing, and then I got taken by a big-ass crow to what is known as the Fire Shrine Link. What? Nowhere, some people tell you some very, very vague things, but again, they're very, very vague things. That I personally didn't enjoy that. Obviously, unpopular opinion based on sales and numbers.
Yeah, I kind of the same way. I played Dark Souls 2. I got through a few bosses, and I understand where the sense of accomplishment comes from. You know, you throw yourself at a boss again and again. You find something that finally clicks, and you finally kill it, and it's the best feeling in the world. And then you get to the next normal enemy, and it's tougher than the boss that you just killed somehow. Those games are not for me. I like difficult games. I don't need them to make me question my life. But I understand why people like them. You know, I'm not saying that like I said, none of these games are bad. They're just for different people. People have opinions.
I think Souls is bad, but whatever.
Well, that's because you're bad. Okay, but no, another series, I was talking earlier about Zelda, which started off very deep end, then it moved into hand-holding, and now it's in a good middle ground. I wanted to start with a series this time that started in the deep end, like the Fallout series, or the Elder Scrolls, which you're basically thrown into the world, and the older games were text-based adventures or very, very graphic light. They weren't incredibly the 3D vibrant worlds that we know now. And so they were more, you had to rely on information that you're keeping in your brain to really get through the game. Like Morrowind, you get put out into a town and you're told to find a guy who lives in another town, and you have to ask about where the town is, and you have to find the best way to get there, which isn't always, you know, the direct route. You might have to like take a silt strider, which is like a taxi. You might have to go the long way around because there's something in the way that'll kill you. Compared to nowadays with Skyrim, I think that's a good middle ground. I know some people were unhappy with the quote-unquote mainstreaming of the series, but I feel like it made the game more accessible to people. Like I wanted to like Morrowind. I couldn't get super into it. But Skyrim, I mentioned before that I am perfectly willing to buy that game again for the Switch because it's so enjoyable to me being put into the world. And the intro is a little lengthy, but it's not nearly as bad as any of the Zelda games. You'll get through it in maybe half an hour. And after that, you're free to go wherever you want. And most times I actually end up going to the same town, the same starting town, Riverwood. But after that, like, who knows? Whatever you want to do, that's the Skyrim is the limit.
I'm shaking my head.
And then like
I've said worse, but I'm shaking my head.
Like with Horizon Zero Dawn, I think is also a good middle game where the game teaches you some things and the rest you kind of have to learn to exploit and figure out yourself. The quests are a good starting ground, but that's not at all where you're supposed to stop in terms of utilizing your weapons to their max potential. But like I said a few times over, these are all just my opinion. You know, some people enjoy having their more informative companions telling you constantly what needs to be done or what each item is. Some people don't. Some people don't even play Call of Duty for the story, so that's completely irrelevant for them. Mm-hmm. They play against other people, which that is less, you know, handholdy. That'll just
that is. I mean, where Call of Duty might be one of the extremes for handholding. Their multiplayer, at least. Yeah. Good luck, bye.
And then on top of that, you get yelled at by strangers calling you horrible things sometimes.
Undertale strikes a good middle ground between handholding and the deep end, while at the same time satiring both. You got the tutorial with literally a character named Toriel, and she is literally holding your hand through most of it, like literally. Oh wait, watch out for the spike trap. Here, let me help you. She runs over, grabs your hand, and then she proceeds to guide you through it. This was entirely satirical of the over-tutorialization problem that we had, not at the time that Undertale came out, more so shortly beforehand. It also does a really good job of, like, in those fights, you're not thrown into the deep end necessarily, but you're told, okay, if it's not colored, it's going to hurt you, don't touch it. And with that basic rule in mind, yeah, it never breaks that rule and makes sure to keep those things that you have to move out of the way from. Everybody calls the game an RPG. I like to call it an action platformer because of the way you avoid the attacks and stuff. You might go running around this overworld in a manner that is, you know, navigating in an RPG manner.
Yeah.
But the action, there's definitely a lot of action in it. It is definitely not just a sit there and pick my attack kind of game.
Yeah.
You are very much moving very actively throughout that little tiny box that is basically, you know, your escape routes. It's the space that you have depending on the attack to make your defense. One of the other things that it does well is that without explicitly telling you what endings you can or can't get, and without telling you what to do to get those, you're still given the information to work things out. Like when you're in a fight and you want to try and work things out with the quote-unquote enemy, the monster, when you want to work things out, you'll start seeing things highlighted in yellow, so you know, okay, you can stop trying all those other weird things now. You can end the fight now, Mercy, and that's it. You solve this puzzle. So it makes it clear there without, you know, just leaving you without a clue as to whether or not you finally succeeded in pacifying this particular beast.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that part of it, especially because, and this is spoilers for anybody who hasn't played it yet somehow. At the beginning of the game, when Toriel is telling you this is how combat works, she tells you, talk to the dummy, which it's never going to respond to you no matter what you do. And as a gamer, your first instinct is to just fight it and punch it, and it'll break and die. But if you talk to it, again, nothing happens because it's a dummy. So in your mind, you're like, okay, that was kind of cute, but pointless. So when you have to go fight her, unless you're specifically like already know, like, I can get through this fight without killing her, you're just gonna fight because that's all you know. You're gonna
want to do. You're gonna want to mash the A button.
Yeah, and if you mercy, for the first few times, nothing happens. So the game is pushing you to kind of to support your predisposed habits of just fighting every enemy you fight in a game, every enemy you meet in a game.
It doesn't make it very rewarding immediately to follow the way the game, or at least Torio, wants you to play. It doesn't. You're not getting. You get a lot of gold by killing people. You get more experience.
Yeah.
You don't get so much from
any experience.
You don't get.
Not killing.
Yeah. You get the gold and no experience. So it doesn't make it immediately rewarding.
Especially because you haven't built a connection with this character, but later in the series, as you're meeting characters that you'll grow to really enjoy and love, it becomes harder and harder to just do what you think is natural and kill them, and not knowing that it is possible to go through the game without really killing any of the characters and basically saving the world for these people. And all of this is with the basic tutorial. It doesn't take very long to get through, and from that point on, you're free to tackle the game as you see fit. But like as we've been saying, there's not necessarily a bad game out of any of the ones that we mentioned, unless you personally think they're unenjoyable, and that's your opinion. And just like this is our opinion that these are all great games. They've succeeded for a reason, and it's interesting to see how different games handle their audience differently. Some of them will take very good care of them with like baby gloves and say like, this is how you do this is how you do that, and that. Versus other games that are like, good luck, and then laugh at you while you're throwing yourself against an enemy. Which, like I said, it's not my idea of fun, but I understand why people enjoy these games. But we really would like to hear what our listeners have to say. So if you have any questions, comments, please email us at gamegopodcast@gmail.com.
You can hit us up on the Facebook.
You can leave comments on GameGoPodcast.com on article. Any way you can reach us, let us know. And if you enjoy what you're listening to, leave us a high rating on iTunes or Google Play or wherever you're listening to this, and we would really appreciate it. Well, that about wraps it up for us today. Thank you for joining us for the 4th episode of GameGo, a podcast where we talk about video games and whatever else you feel like. I am Sonorith, and with me as always is H8BitHero. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Ooh.